Right guys, sorry about that. I don't know what was going on. Had a random crash out for some reason. So I was chatting to myself for a little bit. So I didn't realise. I'll tell you, my one complaint here with Streamlabs, they're not very good at telling you that your stream's disconnected. There's no like sound or big warning mark or exclamation or anything like that. It just, just goes off. I still don't know what caused it. Right, resume where we left off. So first ZBrush randomly crashes on me and then the stream dies. Awesome. What would a live stream be without a few technical hiccups, eh? Oh, so this is going to be leather armour, I believe, looking at it. Only because I've muted all of the audio. The actual audio I've got set on my my BRB tracks and the thing. There's like a native audio that's part of it, and it wasn't until I started listening to my videos back I was like, bloody hell, that sounds awful. It sounded all right for like, you know, at a glance when I was picking the track, but then when it's like playing on repeat on a loop for like 5, 6, 7 minutes or whatever it is, you're like, geez, this is like, nah. So I just put my nice chill lo-fi tracks on in the background now, and that's just my soundtrack to everything then. let's get some detail on here for interest's sake. Turn Sculptures Pro off mode for a minute. Oh, Sculptures Pro mode off rather. And I'll Yoda then for a second. I haven't got any questions at the moment, mate. The only one, as I say, I haven't got any questions. I actually think of one I have got. This character, is she a human warrior or is she one of you like revenant type undeady looking ones? Do I need to like make her look a little bit less alive, or is she okay to look fully human? Okay, so that's going to come down to the paint job then, is it? The kind of the dead look. Yeah, we got a special project set aside for them, haven't we? That was okay, so we'll add a few scratches and a little bit of wear to the cloth and stuff like that, but then we'll leave the rest of it as again paint effects for the most part. If we go for too much physical, like sculpted damage, they do start to look a little bit decrepit. That's obviously what I said. It's not the goal, is it, with these guys? So I say, it's also so you can just buy the book and buy some cool minis elsewhere. It's not a mission to get the stuff that fits theme. Oh, that's the wrong coffee. Where's... Availability is always an issue, isn't it? And accessibility, like. But again, me and Max have had conversations about this many times with Crystal Collapse and like the new game he's working on for us as well. Kind of about ideally we do want to use the game to kind of sell models, so we do want people to be buying the minis. So the game is kind of a delivery mechanism for that. But equally, we want people to be playing the game. So if people play the game, the chances that they're going to come around to using our minis in the end is, you know, if they're enjoying the game, why not, you know what I mean? But we want to make sure the game is playable. So Crystal Collapse is an example. On the website, I've been doing some edits over the last few days. I've been updating the how to play pages and getting the info updated on there. So we've got so it matches like the current rule set. And again, it's all about making sure that it is available, that people can play the game, people can see what they're getting into. So ultimately, if people like it one way or another, they're going to buy into it, aren't they? We've got to let them have an opportunity to know that they like it first. So are you planning on, with this one then, Dave, are you planning on doing like a box game, or are you planning on doing, like I say, book and minis and have the book as a physical thing, or is it all print and play, or print on demand? What's your vision? So I would definitely say, if you're planning on going down the route of print and play, you can get your book loaded into Amazon KDP. Make sure people can buy a physical version of it as well. You save yourself a ton of money on production then. Oh, sorry, a ton of money up front. Yeah, I underestimated how much time it takes to do the game box thing. So again, with Crystal Collapse, we're running over time on production because of the various different bits we've got to kind of run through. You just reminded me, actually, I've still got to design the actual game box, or finish designing it rather. Gotta get ready for UK Games Expo. Mate, you're gonna be a busy boy for that one. That's me. Oops, wrong one. Stick a belt on there. Have you got a stall booked at UK Games Expo, Dave? Or are you just going to see you can tag along with? Okay, saved it in a while. Hayland Terrain. I don't think I've heard of them guys, mate. Do some good stuff. A big boy booth. I tell you, they're bloody expensive at that show, man. Oh, these are the guys with the Monty Python Holy Grail minis. Just looking at the website at the moment, and I'm baffled because they're called Hayland Wargame Terrain, and I've not found any terrain on there. they all seem to be miniatures. A bit more terrain-y stuff when you get into their digital. I do like their Monty Python models, to be fair. Ah, Wayland. Yeah. Wayland's his actual name. Well, mate, did you, I don't know if I spoke to you about it, did you ever see the whole thing with Futsal when they were rebranding originally? So they had some issues with the Futsal brand in terms of like some bad rap that they built up with the past owners who'd, I don't know if they'd run up some bad credit or something like that, and even though they were like new ownership, certain companies wouldn't kind of offer them credit for, you know, things like rubber and metal and stuff like that for their mainstay products. So they went off and tried to rebrand, and they rebranded as War Banner. Black and white logo, the word war at the top and then banner below, kind of a flag pennant shaped logo, and black background, white text. And they did all of this and they launched Mortal Gods, sold like 5,000 copies of the game, got it all packaged up, and then midway through fulfillment they got a cease and desist from Games Workshop, who had just rebranded all of they'd been running with this name for like a year or more, and then Games Workshop rebranded their Games Workshop stores as Warhammer stores, and they used the black and white logo as they've got now. And they basically sent War Banner, as the time, a cease and desist saying, sorry guys, you can't use that name, you've got to change your company name, and it's too similar to Warhammer. And yeah, basically they ended up going through this whole legal dispute, and they were basically told if they take it to court they will win on a technicality, but because Games Workshop have got such deep pockets, they'll just cripple them in the lawsuit. So it wasn't worth fighting it, so they changed the name. So they changed the name to Peak Gaming, Dark Peak, which was some kind of reference to the Peak District, where they'd kind of come up with the idea of having this whole, you know, setting up the company and doing their mini range and all this kind of stuff. So they rebranded as Dark Peak Gaming, and then within days of the announcement coming out that they were using Dark Peak Gaming, a company called Peak Gaming, that are like an app developer, had registered in their registered their products to include like board games and tabletop games, even though they don't do that kind of stuff. They'd registered that under their own brand and then sent them a cease and desist saying you've got to change from Peak Gaming, you can't use Dark Peak. So they just went, screw it, we'll go back to Futsal. So they're still Futsal miniatures now. And yeah, it's all down to, it's a bit too similar to mine. But yeah, no, it sucks, doesn't it? But I suppose some people, you know, have nothing better to do. But the Peak Gaming one, that was a surprise, because obviously they're, you know, we've never heard of them anyway. They come out of nowhere. Indeed it is, mate, indeed. Painful, agonising, and yeah, just too much of a bloody headache. Right, that's going to go here. Are you registering a company for your No, well, I'd never heard of them, but I know when Andy and Mark looked into them, they were like, geez, these guys are worth loads, they've got deep pockets as well. Because you'd have thought the Peak Gaming one, the Dark Peak one, you know, thinking they were an unknown company, but if you look at what they were actually worth, it was a lot, you know what I mean? Because they do app development, they're doing all these like freemium type games where the game costs nothing, but then you've got all the premium purchases you can buy, like pay to win type stuff. There's a lot of money in those kind of things. And obviously that was, you know, you've got a company that makes little metal historical miniatures versus someone like that with like really deep pockets. It's a no contest really, isn't it? Right, auto group. Group polish, bump that to 750. I think we're running that, give or take 700ish. Save so I don't lose anything. Tell you what else I need to get my head around as well. I need to look into the Gamac lawsuit and see where that's currently sitting at, because I haven't heard anything from that for a couple of months now, I don't think. That was a bit of an interesting case, that one was. Oh, Sam, you're back as Forge Master now. Because you're on YouTube instead of Twitch. Guys, while he's online actually, Mr. Forge Master Miniatures here, I just want to kind of announce, we've already put out a kind of thing to the Kickstarter backers and the Game Fan backers and whatnot, but we've come up with a little bit of a partnership, myself and Sam, aka Forge Master. Where I don't really have the capacity for producing terrain, so I obviously do make terrain, but then when it comes to actually selling copies of it, I'm limiting myself to digital sales. And I know not everybody's got a 3D printer, so not everybody wants to buy the digital files. Some people just want it made for them, and this is where Forge Master comes in. So if you're into your Lord of the Rings models, first off, if you like your Lord of the Rings tabletop game, you need to go and check out Forge Master, because they've got licenses for all of the I'm going to call them knockoff brands, all of the kind of the sculptors out there who are making compatible miniatures to be used with the Lord of the Rings battle game. So if you want models that aren't the proper Games Workshop ones, or you want stuff that they don't sell, or you've got no access to them or whatever else, go check out Forge Master. You're going to get loads of stuff on there. He's got all of them. He's also got some models of his own that are really cool as well, and he's also selling the Crystal Collapse terrain bundles and stuff like that. So all of the stuff that is like the cottage, the mine shed, all of the hills and the elevations and stuff, the trees, the mine carts and mine tracks, you can buy it all from Forge Master. So go on there, have a look, and you can tart up your tabletop and make it look beautiful. And that's all an official partnership. So yeah, go check them out, give them some of your business. And obviously we'll be bringing more terrain and stuff in the future, so we can do a bit more together. And yeah, Mr. Squarepeg, the Gamac situation, let's talk about that one for a minute. So basically, I do think he's a bit close to the line in terms of what he's producing, in terms of his sculpts. So I don't think he's completely innocent in the situation. What's weird about the lawsuit there is Games Workshop are suing him for unfair competition, I think it was, or something like that. It was something unusual. So they're basically saying his models compete with their own, which is technically true. No worries, Sam. Always happy, mate. Always happy to help. it's technically true because they obviously are making models that are compatible with the you know, the Games Workshop games and whatever, but so are like thousands of other like creators out there. Loads of people are kind of, and this is where I was saying earlier on as well, this whole situation where we're making stuff that's compatible for like Dungeons and Dragons. D&D have already tried to do this whole ownership issue, and they've created problems for creators who are attached to their IP. They've already done that in the past, where they tried to change the terms of the open gaming license. I think they backed down out of that one, and they came away from it and kind of did a reset. Games Workshop never had any form of agreement for anybody to be producing any of this kind of stuff, and they've actively gone after people. I mean, they went after Chapter House a while back, if anybody remembers that one. Chapter House were making things for 40k and Warhammer Fantasy, I think, that were non-official, but that Games Workshop literally weren't making themselves. So they were kind of producing this stuff, kind of going, well, if you're not going to make it, we'll do it for you. And yeah, they took the ump with it basically, and they said, no, we're not having that. So they took them to court, and ultimately Games Workshop lost the majority of the cases that were brought against them, or that they brought up. But what that then prompted was for Games Workshop to go and do a massive, great big rebrand. So all that time back when they kind of changed from Space Marines to possibly, I mean, they were making, I think the one-page rules things could well be something they've done after the event to try and kind of say, oh, we're not doing it for Games Workshop games, we're doing it for one-page rules, because one-page rules are in the clear at the moment. Even though, as far as I can see, all of their one-page rules systems are basically like sanitized versions of the GW equivalent. It's like their sci-fi game is like a sanitized 40k. With all of like the lore removed and stuff. It's just like, you know, it gives you the same feel and same vibe and whatever. But yeah, I don't know, it's a funny old marketplace, isn't it, for this kind of thing, and you've got to be very careful whenever you're doing anything IP related. I mean, I do some of the stuff that is like, you know, Final Fantasy related, and the reason I do that is because it's basically a marketing gimmick, because we want to draw Final Fantasy fans in to play Crystal Collapse, based on the fact that we were inspired by Final Fantasy Tactics when we made Crystal Collapse. That was the kind of the, you know, the root of our inspiration. So we were like, you know, let's try and appeal to those gamers. So we were trying to make Final Fantasy models that people would come and, you know, they'd come for the Final Fantasy models, discover Crystal Collapse, and they stay for the game. Then that's the plan. But obviously it's dodgy ground, isn't it, going into anything IP related? So I've kind of backed off the whole thing a little bit now because I'm not comfortable doing it so much. Worst case scenario, you get a cease and desist, you pull the product line, and you lose a little bit of work. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at with that one. But yeah, I wouldn't fancy, like video game companies and stuff are less interested in these kinds of things, just because it doesn't, you know, it's not a product line that they produce themselves, so they're not looking at you as competition, so you're not doing anything that competes with them. The issue comes when you've got like a company like Games Workshop that produces miniatures, and you're producing miniatures to be used with their games, which is indirect competition with what they're producing. Now, ideally they'd be confident enough in their customer base and their products and stuff to say, actually, do you know what, you are no threat to us because you're, you know, a smaller creator. Yes, you've got a decent following, but nothing like what Games Workshop have got. But obviously we know that's not necessarily the case, is it? So okay, she needs some gloves. Extracts, let's go for 684 on that one. Nope, too big. 485, 458, there we go. I'm going to again hollow the inside, remove the interior geometry, delete hidden close holes, and then auto group. Thank you very much. So they get there eventually. You go through a phase where it starts to look quite ugly, and stuff doesn't really work out. And then as you start adding more details, things start coming together quite quickly. So what we're in, we're about two hours in, hour and a half into this sculpt, I think so far. Right, so we'll leave the gloves there. Let's put a little let's do a little bit of a border around here. A little tan down. Yeah, Mr. Squarepeg, one of the things you'll find, so like I don't know how well you know me on here or if you've seen my stuff before, but I've been sculpting models now for over 20 odd years. And when I first started, I started using like green stuff and Procreate and other epoxy putties for making models that were going to be cast in metal and resin, back before we had like 3D printers really. And in about 2010 I switched over to a digital workflow, mostly because my wife, who obviously wasn't my wife at that point, she was my partner, my girlfriend, she was getting pissed off with me because I'd got all this toolbox full of models. And I don't know if you've ever worked with green stuff, but the biggest headache I always had with it was I'd be sculpting something and then all of a sudden I'd get a little bit ahead of myself, a bit over ambitious, and try and do a little bit more than I should on the one model. And then I'd turn it around and there's a massive great big thumbprint on the bit that I've completed that I'm happy with. So I got in a habit of working with like 10 models at a time. So I've got corks with like little wire armatures sticking out of them, and I'll be sculpting the characters, and then we go through, like, you know, do a little bit, right, I'm happy with that, park that, get the next model and work a bit on that. So you get in this habit of like multi character sculpting at a time. So usually about 10 on the go in one go. So you do a little bit, work on the next bit. You've got about an hour of working time on your putty before it sets up. So I do my hour of work, get all of the stuff done, wrap it all up, and then go back to the first one. And it should be like cured enough that I'm not gonna destroy it if I've accidentally touched the bit I've just worked on. So I've got this like cycle going, but what that meant is every time I'm sculpting models, I'm doing commission work and whatever else, every time I sculpt a model, I've got a toolbox that gets opened up, spread out across the dining table or spread out across the coffee table. So me and the missus are sitting there watching TV and I've got my sculpting going on and I'm just literally sprawled out everywhere. And she just got so miffed with me doing it. So I ended up going for digital sculpting because it was cleaner and tidier, i.e. it's all on a laptop and whatever. So, yes, that was what pushed me towards digital rather than physical, was just getting an ear bending all the time. So, so 2010, I started working on ZBrush and started doing all this kind of stuff, but there was no tutorials around at the time for how to use ZBrush as a for making 3D printed models. There was nothing about 3D printing actually. Everything you found online was all about workflows for animation and video game assets and stuff like that, working low poly. Nothing really kind of like ticked the boxes. So what I ended up doing was I ended up using ZBrush. I actually discovered it through Sculptris app at the time. So you use Sculptris to, we've got Sculptris as a mode up here now, it's this button here. They incorporate it into ZBrush, but it does dynamic topology, so when you're sculpting, it just adds the topology where you need it, rather than you having to like physically incorporate it and build it in or remesh anything. So it was more organic way of working. So I've never done any kind of like video game modelling or anything like that. So I'd never dealt with like poly pushing or any of that kind of business. So I literally came in as a physical sculptor trying to learn ZBrush, and I ended up developing my own techniques that would work based on my actual physical sculpting techniques. So I don't use stamps, I don't use like pre-purchased tools and things like that. It was all about kind of like, you know, making it by hand in my own style, and it works out well. But obviously it's all a technique I developed myself based on trial and error. So it's been an interesting journey for sure, you know what I mean? But that's why I'm trying to build these tutorials now and trying to do like, you know, the courses and things to try and help people basically cut out all the stuff I went through in the early days where I was trying to find the information that didn't exist. I'm all for kind of like, you know, you learn from your mistakes, but if you can learn from other people's mistakes, winner winner chicken dinner. Awesome. Well, if you need anything, mate, we've got the Discord server, which when you sign up for the course, you'll get the link to the Discord server. You'll be automatically invited. DM me on there. Make sure I add you into the sculpting group, and you can post your work in progress. You can post any questions you've got and whatever else. And I'm in there most of the time. I've had a little bit of a break from it over Christmas, over the Christmas period, so I'll be back into it again like now. But yeah, I'll be in there all the time. Other guys in the group again, if you've got any questions, a lot of knowledgeable people in there who will chip in and help. And I'm always about to kind of, you know, give you some critique and, you know, guidance and offer any advice you might need. So you're buying into a course, but you're also kind of like, you know, you're also invited to the community to help kind of help you grow and sounds really kind of wanky, doesn't it? Help you grow and develop your skills and you know, get the most out of it essentially. Help you work through some hurdles and you know, build up a portfolio, get you where you want to be career-wise or whatever your intentions are with the hobby and whatever. Help you level it up, then you know, I am a happy man. Right, did I save it then? Let's save it again just to make sure. Extracts, perfect. Delete the interior geometry. Right, let's do my my chainmail technique here. duplicate that, delete hidden. Right, we've got a brush. Da-da-dum. Shortcut to my brushes, armour, and that one. Okay, so with my chainmail insert brush, there's a chainmail tutorial on my YouTube channel. If you're interested in it, go and have a little look at that. It tells you how to do all of this. There's also a link to download the actual chainmail tool for free on there. Get some brush settings, which they're over here. Depth, I'm going to set brush depth right low, so the dot is below the line. And with symmetry on, we're going to go and we're going to add the arms to the torso. So merge it down. We're going to have symmetry on for this. I want a ring size of bigger than that. 46 that'll do. So we'll start on the outside of the sleeve. You can go as small as you want on this, but again, we're aiming for something that's paintable, that looks like chainmail on a model. And we want these little holes to be fairly evident in the thing. We want them to be big enough that they're going to hold a little bit of ink wash. Or if you if you paint how I paint, I use a black base coat, so I'll scrub a black base coat over it, make sure the black gets into all of the little nooks and crannies on the chainmail, and then we'll dry brush some silver over the top. So I normally use multiple successive layers of silver. So the first one will be usually like a metallic black. Then we go over with a layer of gunmetal, and then like a steel or chainmail colour, depending on what paint brand you use. It's like a darker silver, something that's lighter than the gunmetal, but not as light as like a pure mithril silver. And then we go up to a mithril silver highlight for the lightest areas. So even though it's chainmail and we're just doing a bit of dry brushing, you can still layer up the colours and build up your contrast on the shapes. I don't need to go all the way over the top of the shoulder because I'm going to be putting some pauldrons on. Oops, let's hide the bits we don't need. Now you see with these rings, they extrude right back in. Red Kana, I do. I've experimented with this loads of times. I've done a few videos about it. On my chainmail tutorial, I do explain it thoroughly. It's quite a quick process to do, and for miniatures, this gives you for me, having tested, so I've been a miniature painter for 35 years now. So I started painting when I was like 5 years old, in fact 37 years. Started painting miniatures when I was 5 years old. I always come at it from the point of view of a painter, and what I found is some of the techniques for chainmail either have a seam that you've got to deal with, which trying to hide a seam or kind of incorporate it into the design means you're compromising somewhere. So the seams annoy me and I can't deal with them, or you end up using things like nano mesh. When you're using like a nano mesh, the difficulty with the miniature is you end up with something that is floating above the surface that's like hollow essentially. And with miniatures, again, it needs to be solid, which is why I said I've got them extruded right back into the kind of the solid body. So there's no underlying structure that is going to kind of need supports or cause failure on the model. So we've got all the external rings here visible. It takes a couple of minutes to slam it down, but you could, in theory, spend a lot longer than that by doing remeshing your model, doing your UV unwrap, trying to make all of your polygons the same size and equally square and whatever else, setting up everything, you know, setting it all up. It can take an awful long time. Whereas with this, I can just quickly go in, do it, and then if I want to kind of beat it up, like this guy, this character is like an undead warrior, which is mostly human looking, so you don't see that, but if I want to kind of dink the armour up a little bit, what I can do is I can auto group all of the rings, and I can go in there and just remove like one or two here and there, just to give it a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of battle damage essentially. So although it looks like it's a time sink, it really doesn't take that long to do. And I promise you, when you paint this, it looks smart. It's all about the painting. You can see I'm using the in ZBrush, you can hold Control to automatically set the loop size, set the brush size, so the insert mesh becomes like the standard size. But yeah, I've experimented with many different techniques over the years and come to the conclusion that this is the one for me. Just from a control and painting point of view, really. Yeah, I mean, I've tried brushes, I've tried insert meshes. I even went through a phase that we call donut mail, jokingly. But I kind of came to the conclusion that we needed the armour. The chainmail links needed to be about the size of a mini donut to paint nicely. And I ended up actually going through physically sculpting the rings by hand, and I'm talking like literally drawing them on. So like where I've just done that, I was doing this, look. So I was going like 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring, 4 ring, and I was literally drawing the rings on, going through, like, you know, physically drawing it all, and it was laborious, and led to some kind of, like, you know, crazy delirium. I ended up painting like physically poly painting the rings to look like donuts with like pink icing and sprinkles. But that's another story altogether. The insert meshes, the like the generated what do you call it, surface noise, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, mate, honestly, proper like lunatic level one. But all of the let's get my tool back. All of the what we call it, like the surface noise and everything else, you always end up with the seams in there you've got to kind of deal with, but also trying to get the depth and the contrast in the peaks and the valleys sufficient enough that it looks good was always a trick, always troublesome. And you can make chainmail that looks brilliant on a model, but really just doesn't work when it comes to the physical miniature. You know, it can look lovely on screen, and then just, you know, just doesn't work when you know, you put it into practice. And I found that was the case with virtually every other method I tried. So I'd encourage you, give this one a go. There we go, Crazy Jaws can vouch for it. You're back on Twitch again now, mate. It can be time consuming. Sometimes you can get the pattern looking a bit messy. But actually what I found is, if you're doing something chaosy or orcish or whatever else, messy actually adds to the effect. On the tutorial I do on YouTube when I show this off, if you have a look at it, I'm doing it on a zombie goblin. A goblin zombie. So I'm chainmailing a goblin zombie, and having the chainmail links erratic and all over the place actually kind of helps a little bit. Exactly, matey. Well, I say I've done this this ZBrush course, which is on Gumroad at the moment, and the whole purpose of doing that was to kind of give people an insight into how to sculpt a miniature for 32mm scale. And most of the course is talking about like design theory and how to make actual miniatures rather than just models that look nice on renders. Because I would say at one point I'd say it was about 95% of the stuff that's out there on the market was not suitable for miniatures. It's probably around about 75 to 80% now is not suitable. And it's just people who just don't understand those last the things that make it a miniature rather than what makes it a sculpture. So if you're making something that's going to be printed in 12 inches tall or 10 inches tall or 8 inches even, whatever, then yeah, you're going to have decent, you can put a decent amount of surface detail in there and textures and stuff. But if you're doing a 32mm model and you're sculpting leather texture, or you're using like texture stamps for hair and things like that, it's not going to show up enough. You really need to really exaggerate the detail. And that's kind of what I've gone into in that course, is to give you that extra. You either can't sculpt at all and you learn how to sculpt, or you can sculpt a little bit and you learn all about the miniature side of things. And it's all about kind of looking at the end product and what the end product is for. And I come at it from a point of view of somebody who's painted miniatures for, nearly 40 years now. So everything I do is always thinking about the end product. And I think it's always useful to do that, to sample the end product yourself. So I always say it's like a chef. If you're a chef and you don't taste your food, how do you know it's fit to serve to your customers? Do you know what I mean? Let's taste the food. I'm not talking about eating resin. don't eat resin. Disclaimer, don't eat it, it's bad. Tastes rank. It also probably kill you. But yeah. Let's try and get the normalise printing your own models, supporting your own models, get a bit of paint on them and experience the paint and how it paints. And it'll give you a whole different insight into the whole sculpting process. Let's save this. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying, mate. Trying to do micro mesh inserts, or you're trying to do, insert mesh using. I mean, I've got. Let me show you a couple of the examples. Like this one here, the IMM and Nano IMM, right? These are things I experimented with years ago. I've still got them in my library. Like this thing here. That is an absolute bitch to try and work with, right? If you insert that into your model, right, you put that onto a figure, it might look like, if you orientate it properly, I'm not going to faff with it now, but if you work with this and you place it nicely in lines and whatever else, you still got to try and make the next layer line up. You can see here it's broken and the links have come apart, so you've got an issue to deal with there. And then all of these links, if you look, they're not touching the base mesh, they're not touching the body underneath, they're just free floating. So you've got to then position all of these links so that they go into the thing, because you've got to intersect that layer, because otherwise you're going to have something that's free floating that can't exist on a model. You're not going to be able to get a paintbrush behind it, so you don't want to do that. You've got to have it thick enough and protruding and extruded enough that it's going to kind of physically go through, like the links I've put up here. And you're also going to need to thicken them up, right? So we're going to have to inflate this whole thing. And when you inflate it, so that the rings are thick enough that they can be printed, it suddenly starts looking like, I'll say, a coat of donuts. Everything kind of like binds together. The surface detail where these rings were interlinking now, there's now not any physical definition in that for it to print with. So when you try and print this chainmail, it doesn't really look like chainmail anymore because the rings have lost their distinction by having to be linked. So there's various issues you're going to have using different techniques. Now the other one we've got in here was like this one here, the IMM. And again, we draw that one there. This is like, again, you've got to try and position. You've got to make sure they're all the consistent size. You've got to position them all. And you've still got the exact same issue we were just talking about, where you've got to make sure everything comes through the surface, through the skin of the model. There's got to be no gaps behind the rings. So you don't want this free floating gap, because basically what you've got to then do is you've got to paint the armour underneath. You've got to get some paint under there, under the ring, and into the onto the model below. It just isn't worth doing. It's just not worth. It's not worth the effort. It's not worth the hassle to the painter. The risk of failure on the supports, because all of those freestanding rings, they've got to be printed. And the 3D printer doesn't like dealing with, especially if you've underexposed your prints and stuff, you're going to end up with lots and lots and lots of gaps in your chainmail where it's just not going to work. And then that's going to end up with loads of bits of floating resin in your vat, which are going to cause problems on your later prints. So there's a whole load of reasons not to use certain different types of techniques. And unfortunately, the problem is you don't know what you don't know. So unless you've physically experienced the problems and you've actually kind of been there and done it and whatever else, you're going to be none the wiser. People will just go in there and they'll just use these kind of things. So we need the information out there, which is why my tutorial's online as a freebie. You need the information out there to kind of guide people. And like I say, yes, individual chain links looks like an absolutely insane thing to do. But that hasn't taken me that long. I've spent more time talking about it than I'm actually doing the links. And once you get practiced at it, you know, you get like a rhythm going and stuff. You can just bang out an entire coat of armour with no links, with no seams or anything else in no time at all. The only thing I would say is, although here I'm doing sleeves and a collar, that's absolutely fine. If you're posing the model, you sculpt the underlaying cloth with the contours and the folds and whatever else first, pose the model, sculpt the cloth, the underlayer, that's the form for your chainmail, and then you chainmail the link afterwards. You don't try and do the links and then pose, because that's just going to ask for failure. That's a recipe for disaster. Right then, let's get off my chainmail clad high horse and save this a second. I'm just going to put you guys on a BRB for a second while I brew up another coffee, because it's absolutely Baltically freezing in my office at the moment. I need something warm to keep me going. So let me just pause you for a second, put you on a BRB. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Red, while my coffee's brewing, I'll just talk you through this one actually. So I actually think you can do it in Blender. It won't work in the same way, but the tool I've got there is basically just an OBJ file. So you'd just be inserting an OBJ and cloning it and just placing them and stuff. So it'd probably take a little bit more time to kind of set it up. But I would imagine there's a way of doing it in Blender. Now, quite a lot of people have asked me for my sculpting course if it can be used in Blender because they don't want to pay the license fee for ZBrush. I haven't even got the current ZBrush subscription, so I don't have the new update. So I'm using the last version that was permanently supported by their lifetime license. So I bought it back in 2010 at full price, and they guaranteed lifetime updates. And then when Maxon took over ZBrush, they kind of changed it and put it onto a subscription model. But they've had to honour all of the people who had the lifetime license up to a point. Once they switched to a subscription model, the only way I can get the updates now is if I upgrade my account to subscription. And then if I do a subscription on it, I obviously don't get all of the I've got to continue paying for it permanently, so my lifetime license doesn't stick around, if you like. So one of the things I've set myself a target to do this year is to, and I'll do this as a YouTube series as well, is to actually learn to sculpt using Blender. I understand they've added some new plugins or something like that make sculpting a lot easier now. Oh, the coffee's made. Let me just get back to the sculpt. So I need to double check what the plugins I need are and get it all set up and whatever else. But it should be a more ZBrush-like sculpting experience. So if I can migrate from sculpting in ZBrush to sculpting in Blender and still achieve all the same stuff, then I'm on a winner. And I think a lot of people will benefit from that in terms of their own what do we call it? Their own sculpting experience. Because I actually did reach out to Maxon to see if I could get a student license for people doing my course, and they just went, nah. It's not. You've got to be a proper academic institution to qualify. You don't get it anyway. So, there's an add-on that does multi-mesh. There's got to be something. I mean, the fact that Blender's open source and people are building it, the sculpting over the time, as I understand it, oh, hang on. We've got a bit of a glitch in my music. Let me skip this one. Yeah, so the what was I saying? In Blender, the issue has always been so ZBrush here. I've got 7.8 million polys, I think, active. I've got 7.8 million polys in the scene, but I've got 1.4 million polys in the chainmail bit I'm working on here. So the issue with the way Blender handles this is Blender renders all 7.8 million polys in one go, and it can cause massive lag in your system. Whereas ZBrush fakes all of the other stuff, so it's actively rendering 1.4 million polys now, but the remaining, what's that, 6 million polys, 6.4 million polys, whatever, they're just being faked. So they're not actively draining my resources of my computer, so I can work on much bigger files. I can get this up to 100 million polys and it'll still work fine. Whereas if I try and do 100 million polys in a scene in Blender, I'm going to be crying into my keyboard. So I'm hoping the new Blender mods have kind of allowed for that. I know you can do dynamic tessellation in Blender. I know, I've seen that. It's a modifier you apply to your model when you're sculpting. So I've just got to try and get my head around some of these things that are going to allow me to take my sculpting workflow from ZBrush into Blender, and then I'll do a tutorial update, doing the whole tutorial in Blender instead of in ZBrush. And hopefully it'll have a bigger appeal then as well, because like I say, all the people who are kind of going, I want to do it, but I'm not interested in ZBrush because I don't want to pay the license fee. Right, let's duplicate this. I want to take just the sleeves from what I've done. Delete the hidden. Inflate them a touch. I'm going to move them outwards. Slice through. And group polish Dynamesh. We'll do the same on the side this way. Just smooth this out using H polish. Bump that to about 40, reduce the file size, the draw size down. Just change the outer profile of some of this. Missed a link out there. I need to make sure there's an extra link in. There we go, done. Let's take this now. Slice that there. Let's group them. Group that. Dynamesh and group it all together. Delete that. Slice, let's take the top off there. Okay, we can take that, duplicate and actually, do you know what? I need to put another layer in there, sorry. Okay, right. I'm not going to put a shoulder pad on the other side, just to break symmetry. Get it to roughly where I need it here. I'll just pull it through. Divide it a couple of times so it's smooth, and then I'm just going to do a little ridge around the outside line. Smooth that out. Oh, come off the edge. Need to bring that up a touch more. Through the middle with that. Change the shape of this a little bit. You don't need to do this with buckles, they're such a tiny detail, but sometimes it's worth just making them a little bit more interesting. Save. Let's use that one up on the arm strap so we duplicate it. Push that back. Right. Sent you a chat message about the shoulder strap. Oh, Dave, sorry mate, I've got the my chat hasn't scrolled down, so I've missed a few messages from you, sorry mate. Let's have a look. Yeah, no worries, mate. I'd always planned to do that anyway. One one of the things I always do with armour is I always make sure it's practical. Like if the guy's going to be like super agile, you don't want all spiky bits that are going to stab you in the head. Excuse me. A while back, I was sculpting a character. He's a wild elf for Cursed Empire. Lovely bit of artwork, but the guy who'd drawn the character piece had never intended for it to be made into a physical product. And the guy had got all this armour on. And it was a bit like the pads from an American footballer, but with spikes everywhere. And as I tried to sculpt this thing, I realised that like this is supposed to be a super agile warrior with this like lightweight bit of armour, but the way the spikes were on it, every single time this guy moved in any direction, he was going to be impaling his own flesh. So like there was all this, the spikes would just be bedding into his arm, they'd be stabbing him in the neck, they'd be like, you know, getting him in the chin and things. And I was like, it's just not practical. And I had to redesign and rehash the armour so that it would work. And then I realised like this guy's jumping around doing backflips and somersaults and like, you know, leaping out of trees and all this kind of stuff. And there was no straps holding the armour on, so they were just like free resting on his shoulders. It's like a single piece, like, you know, like a whole over the shoulder mantle type setup. But because it wasn't strapped into place, like if you tried to do a roll or a jump or a somersault, the whole thing's just gonna like fall down over his head and just drop off. So I ended up having to like implement all these extra straps and stuff. The end product was, you know, much like, you know, much more secure and to me looked great. But yeah, not everybody accounts for the practicalities of how the armour's supposed to work on a model. And it is worth just giving it a thought. Yeah, sorry guys, I wasn't ignoring the chat messages. My chat window just literally hadn't moved up to show the last couple of messages. I missed one from you too, Red, as well. What's that? You could instance the links in Blender, but you don't go mad with polys. Yeah, I did it with something a while back. I was making a big scene. I use Blender for my rendering, so I've got like a render scenes in there. I've got like lighting and custom materials and cameras. In fact, there's a tutorial video on YouTube about how I do my rendering with the render scene as well, so like with the lighting setup and everything else in it. It's an unusual stream for me today actually. I've got as much traffic coming through YouTube as I've got coming through Twitch in terms of the chat, which is a rarity. Let's just put a trim detail around there. When I do details like this, if I want to crisp this up and I want to sharpen this little edge ridge up, I know there's ways you can do it using curves and all that kind of business, but it's not me, that's not how my workflow works. Oh, you do? Brilliant. I'm glad to hear. Does it work all right for you? I used to use Keyshot a while back. One of the issues I found with Keyshot, the reason I started using Blender was because I wanted my renders to have transparent backgrounds on them. And you can do alpha rendering with Blender and actually render out transparent backgrounds, which is just, you know, it's an absolute boon. Any other bit of software, like I can do it in here. So if I render in ZBrush natively, and I do a lot of renders here, because now what I do is I use Canva for presentation. Canva's very good at doing background removal when you use the Pro version. But it's always better to not have to faff around trying to remove backgrounds, so if you can just render it without, it's better. But what I would normally have done in here is go to my render, Lightbox render set. I use this comic style Daniel Bell as a base. Come back out of it and go to render settings, filters. I don't like the auto grey that it adds on here, so it adds like a colour filter over the whole thing. So I changed this one to outline edge, which gives you a kind of a more cartoon style look about it. Turn off the poly groups, and then when I come to render this one now, let me just turn off the. Oh, I forgot to render the. I forgot to cut a feet off on this version. So if I do a render now, BPR, so it renders it up, gives you the presentation version of it. What I then do is go into render up here, we go to BPR render pass, and you can see we've got the composite image, which is Jesus Christ, Elson, you, thank you. Give me a bloody heart attack. Happy New Year, mate. Hope you're keeping well. Right, so the renders pass up the top here. We've got the shaded version. We've got the depth map, which you can basically you layer these up in Photoshop and use them as like multiply layers and overlay layers and things like that to kind of add depth and interest to the render. We've got the shadow layer, and then we've got the mask. Now, when you use the mask and you set the mask as a masking layer in Photoshop, it removes the background, like literally alpha turns off the background on it. But you've got to composite the image in Photoshop for that to work. So it's an extra layer of headache and faff that you don't always want to be doing. Whereas Blender natively will allow you to just output something with a transparent background, but you've got to play with it more to get your settings right in the first place, because you don't have all of the extra, outputs. How's Mr. Elston today anyway? You keeping well, mate? Got a massive old pile of spuds in here for you. Get them all cured up for you, and then they'll be ready to send, hopefully. I need to do a count up, because I don't even know how many I've got now. I've just been printing them and they're just mounded up. Yeah, no worries, dude. Happy to help, mate. Happy to help. I'll weigh them all at the end, mate, and I'll give you the weight count so we can figure it out. we go, sweet. So this is for Mr. Dave at MS Paints, mate. So he's, I don't know if you've heard about the project he's working on. He's making his own tabletop game called Petrichor. If you're not familiar with Petrichor, it's the smell of rain on a summer day, like, you know, that kind of that rain, that fresh rain smell. It's that. Rain on rock, particularly, I think, on stone. But it's there's a whole load of hero characters. This is a warrior. So she's like a light, agile combatant. And I've got this one here. So we've got the warrior. We've got this big burly tank dude to get done. A tactician. What's this one called? Like a fencer kind of character. Lightweight combatant, no armour. Got an old Yu-Gi-Oh mage. Bit of VV going on. Hunter. And a grave singer like the old Grim Reaper. So yeah, just starting with the warrior first. That's what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hero characters there to get done. So yeah, crack on with these, get them done over the next the next like 6 weeks. Aiming to try and get like maybe 2 to 3 a week done, and then I've got a load of like zombie type characters for them to do. All whilst trying to get Crystal Collapse print ready. But you know me, I can't say no, can I? You alright, Dave? How's it going, mate? We've got Elston here on Twitch as well. Just prying and asking what you're, what we're up to. I was just telling him you're going to take over the world. He's over on YouTube, mate. I'm multi-stream, so I don't know if I'm supposed to. I don't think I am, but I don't think Twitch likes you doing it anyway. I don't care though. The booty. Ta-da, there you go. Just polish the cheeks for you. There you go. Do you know what? I need to do some hair here. I'm fed up of looking like Cynthia Erivo. Let's get some hair on. Cheers, dude. Ta-da! Hair. There we go. Oh, Elston's back over on YouTube now. No, save it command don't work. You'll have to jump back onto Twitch for that. Oh, you want the longer hair, you don't want the short one. Because your notes, mate, say the shorter hair is preferable. Happy to go either way though. You let us know which one you prefer. Before you wrote you like the left-hand image, but the right hair, the shorter hair on the right-hand image is more practical and suits the class better. But having said that, you the boss. So you tell me what you want, mate, and I'll make it happen. You sure, dude? Just because it's written down doesn't mean it's final, mate. Sweet. Yeah, no worries, mate. You want a Renault mullet? The old rat tail jobbing? You can do that. Renault mullet trails a good stim line. Right, so guys, with hair on miniatures again, you want to go gestural. Don't go literal. You've got to remember as well, any little points we create here are going to need to be supported. What else done with these dreadlocks? The glory days. Can't disagree with you there, mate. Can't disagree with you. Elston, there's a joke about a hole in there somewhere, I think. Apart from we have to talk to people. Isn't that what you do for a living as well? What do you need a new chainmail technique, Keller? My one not good enough for you now? I thought you were getting on well with the chainmail based on your models you made, mate. Where's it letting you down? Oh, balls. So if you're not familiar with ZBrush, there's this little black bar across the top which is all too easy to just tap by accident if you undo bar. Dude, the faster way is just practice with it, man. The chainmail technique is really quick. If you use it regular and practice with it, you get yourself on a roll. Remove obstructions, like the when I did this, for example, the armour was in the way, so I had to take the armour off and just do the, you know, put the chain links in where I can. But you'll find you'll get quicker the more you use it and the more you do with it. And I promise you, it's more effective and more efficient for miniatures than trying to do insert meshes or surface noise methods and stuff like that. Because they always just leave you wanting. And you have to deal with the dirty scene cleanups as well, which are always a pain in the arse with those kind of methods. The individual links, even if you're doing an entire suit of armour, using the individual links, you'll be able to do it quickly if you practice with it. And by the time you've faffed around getting your UVs sorted so you can use other methods, or you've got your, you know, your topology uniform, all the other requirements you have to put into place for the other chainmail methods. And then you've got to try and like make sure all your links link, which is always a bit of an issue. By the time you've spent all the time doing that, you'll be wishing you'd just spent the time placing it. It's worthwhile having a go. I don't like to have to worry about geometry and UVs and all that kind of stuff. Physically, manually place the links. without cramping my wrist. So with the hair on this one, stylising it up, sculpted the tufts in roughly using clay build-up. Pull the tips of the strands using snake hook, and then go over the top to create a ridge using orb cracks, and then I'm just polishing the individual strands for a little bit of clearer definition using H polish. Get this ready to turn into a little ribbon. I think, I could be wrong, but I think I sculpted a ribbon recently and I actually saved it into my library. Maybe not. Or maybe I did and I saved it into my component library. No. Oh, some mops. Bow from 2017 will be an actual bow. Oh, well, that sucks. I sculpted from scratch now. Don't worry, Dave, I've already got you there, mate. save. Oh shit. Hey Rosie, how you doing, mate? A lovely Christmas, thank you, mate. I say New Year's resolution, be back on here and doing more of this kind of stuff. How are you keeping? Oh yeah, just read the bit where you said you're working and you might not be able to reply. Well, I hope you had a good one anyway, mate. Yeah, plan is every Wednesday now I'm going to schedule a stream. So unless something critical occurs and I can't do it, I should be on a Wednesday as a minimum. And I'm going to try and get a couple of extra streams in during the course of the week as well, on top of. So hopefully you should see me on here a little bit more frequently now. You know, I should save that out as a bow, shouldn't I? So I've got the bow there in future. Let's save it as a ribbon now. Okay, so next up, gloves are done. Little cape we need to sort out. We need to do a little pouch. A quick pouch. Quick bit of shaping. Make it look a bit less boxy. I'm going to mask off the area here. Use the move tool just to drag this forward. So I'm going to hold the Alt key, press on the surface here, and I'm just going to drag it back. I can polish up here again, just to smooth it out. Just dye the mesh that we polish on. Clean up that edge. pouch. I'll shrink that right down. Turn the symmetry off, let's stick it on a belt. Couple of little accessories there. Let's get a sword in and a buckler. Right, so buckler. So the first thing to do is to go and raid my weapon collection. Short swords. I feel like Watchman's sword might be a good start. Auto group it. Right, now I know Dave specifically asked for the sword to be wider at the base than at the top. So I'm going to go to scale, I'm going to go to my little cog on a widget, gizmo, whatever we call it. I'm going to get a taper and I'm going to widen out the taper at the base. Now I want to constrain it because I don't want to widen it out that way too much. Dave, are you there at the moment, mate? Dave must not be around right now, so we're just going to go with this. Let's copy it, go back to our base. Dave, alright mate, so before I lock this in then, I'll check you're happy with the sword. Do you have any specifics about the sword? You said wider at the base than at the tip, so we've got that shaped blade. Do you want the hilt changing? Or you're good? Any thoughts, dude? Like that, mate. There you go, that's a blade. Yeah, your messages. Yep, your messages are coming through, mate. Narrower blade at the hilt, but keep the hilt as is. Okay, so we want the hilt to be wider. Like that, mate. Is that all right? So this is like a, is it called a cincadilla or a cincadilla? in honour of Hector, we're going to put a frog on the sword. Oh yeah, I didn't mean an actual frog. I was going to go for a like a sword frog just to hold the scabbard in place, but right, we'll go append a ring. Inflate the rings, it's a bit chunkier. Let's duplicate it and drag it down. Right, and then we want a strap to go on. Let's save that. to group polish, bump the resolution. And there we go. There's your sword frog. Right, I've got about another 15 minutes on this, and then I've got to knock it on the head to go and get the kids from swimming, or get the kids from school and take them swimming rather. So let's get the scarf in, and then slam a buckler on quickly. Right, I'm going to show you how to make a super quick shield. Thin it out so as thin as we think we need it. Divide it a couple of times and then delete, lower, and then we're going to go polish Dynamesh. I'm going to, when it's done, activate symmetry, radial, Y, no, Z. I'm going to bump the radial count up as high as it will go. And then we're going to decent sized brush, we're going to just H polish with the radial symmetry just to get a bit of profile going on. Back to clay build up. I'm going to put a trim around the outside. put a spike in the middle there maybe, and then around the outside, mesh insert dot, reduce my radial count down to 12, 13. And in the middle we'll go to 6, 8. Let's go 8. Go. Well, it's a bit big at the moment for a buckler. It's more like an actual full-size shield. So let's shrink it a touch. Right, and on the back of it, we're going to go back onto our Z. Bump the radial count up. Pull the back a little bit and give it a shape. Right, and then we're going to add a handle. Let's just do a little wrap around handle. I don't expect you're going to see much of this, to be fair, so I shouldn't really be bothered doing it. But You better, mate. You better. Right, let's go and drag some hands in from my library, so I haven't got to faff about and trying to pose hands. E, F, G, H, hand, 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 hand. Now these are man's hands, however, because she's wearing gloves, I think I can get away with it. In fact, I'm certain of it now. It's always worth thickening the palm of the hand when you're about to put it onto a weapon, because what you don't want is like a gap between the fingers and the handle of the weapon, because that will haunt you. Oh, it's a small hand. Not the creepy guy from was it Scary Movie? Not Scary Movie. Was it Scary Movie? That's not. Do you know? I saw this thing the other day. Another Mandela effect. That line was not in the movie. The "Take My Strong Hand" line. Everybody remembers it, It's not in the movie. I think he just says, take my hand. Which I do not buy, because I absolutely remember that line. And the fact that you've just put it on there makes me know I'm right. There we go. Little mantle now, little scarf to go around the neck. That's my alarm telling me hurry up. Oops, wrong one. What we'll do, Dave, I'm going to get this posed up, get all of the gear on her, all the details done, get her posed up, and then we'll do battle damage afterwards, and we'll sort out the level of tatter and damage across the gear. Nice, glad you're happy, mate. Alright, anything else you need on her before I knock it on the head? There we go. Sweet. Right. Crossbow. That was what you wanted, weren't it, mate? Big crossbow on her back. I just thought the crossbow needs to go the other way around, doesn't it? Okay, sweet. There we go. Get a ring in there now. Oops. It's not a race against the clock, man. I feel like challenge Annika. Something about the helicopter and the jumpsuit. Right then, guys, there we go. All done. Oh, for the sculpt anyway. I'll get her posed laters. Happy, Dave? I feel like we've got the look from the artwork. Sweet. Okie dokie then, mate. Well, I'm gonna knock this on the head now, so I've got a dash and I've got 15 minutes to be at the school with the swimming kit. So I've got to go and get the kit ready, jump in the car and bomb down the road at a very legal speed to get there in time. So Dave, thanks for being on hand today, mate. I'll try and get on tomorrow and do another one again. It'll be the same time. Yeah, if you're about, awesome. If not, I'll send you updates when I'm wrapped up anyway, and you can give me some feedback before I pose. And hopefully I'll get this lovely lady wrapped up later for you. So she's done in a day. Okay then, peeps, thank you all for joining me. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for chipping in and keeping me company and chatting to me throughout the day. And yeah, same place, same time tomorrow. Cheers, guys. Catch you all later. Adios, peeps.